Studio hotline at 336-831-0864. Station's your final time cue will be with 15 seconds until airtime. Mark, 15 seconds until airtime.
The following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College.
This is Duck Insider.
Give it to Verdell. He's got the first down and gone. Duck fans start celebrating. Oregon is the 2019 Pac-12 champion. 2020 Rose Bowl champion.
Richardson, another open three. Good. Duarte dribbles and slams with the right hand. For the third time in the last 5 years, the Ducks are Pac-12 champions.
Foley three. Good. Foley ball. Out Shelley. Three ball. Good. Regular season champions and now Pac-12 tournament champions.
Welcome to Duck Insider.
We're just getting started.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Better banking, local solutions. Live from the Country Financial Studio, here's Joey Mack.
Football is back! Yes! Oh, I've been waiting to say that for I don't even know how long anymore. Football is back. Thanks for joining us. It's a great Friday edition of Duck Insider. Oh, we have so much to tell you about because football is back. The reigning Pac-12 champions will be back on the field. Maybe Mario Cristobal put it better than anybody when he sent out just a gif of Mike Tyson and his eyes going back and forth looking at the challenger. All the details. We have all the details for you. We will also hear from University of Oregon President Michael Schill. We will hear from Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott. We will hear from Dr. Doug Ackerman, who is on the Medical Advisory Committee. We will have all of your questions, and I will do my best to answer them. We don't have a schedule yet. We're going to wait on that. They're figuring that out, ironing out details. Also today, this afternoon, Rob Mullins, Oregon Athletic Director, and Oregon football head coach Mario Cristobal are going to meet with the media. We will not have those comments for you on the show today because of when we're on the air and when the press conference is taking place. So we're going to have those comments for you on Monday. Also on our OSN Classics broadcast tomorrow. Join us, Jerry and Jorgie, live from Autzen Stadium, 11 a.m. tomorrow across the Oregon Sports Network. All the details from Rob Mullins and Mario Cristobal on the return of Pac-12 play. All right, here are the details. We're playing football, baby. Many of you probably saw some great videos from Go Ducks, from Oregon football, and we just all feel great about this. So, after reviewing all of the new info, the decision was made that sports are coming back. The August 11th decision of the Pac-12 CEO group to postpone sport competitions was based upon 3 central concerns cited by that medical advisory committee. They said, 1, consistent testing capabilities. Yeah, that's right. Everybody's coming back. Oh, man, I'm so excited. So excited. Oh, you're going to notice that I'm just going to go off the rails so many different times today because, yeah, we're excited. Oregon football is back. The Pac is back, as they say. All right, so one of the things they said, consistent testing capabilities across all Pac-12 universities. Number 2 was the prevalence of the virus in Pac-12 communities and nationally, and concerns related to possible cardiac issues potentially associated with COVID-19. The decision to resume sport competitions based upon the Medical Advisory Committee's recommendations that point to material improvements in each of those 3 areas, along with the updated state and local public health guidance. So, rapid daily testing. The partnership with the Quidel Corporation, certainly a huge key to the return to play. For universities utilizing the daily antigen testing, at least 1 weekly PCR test will also be administered for each student athlete. I thought it was important to note that the Pac-12, the conference, the schools, they're doing everything they can to make sure that this is done safely. So in the sport of football, Pac-12 universities, with the necessary public health approvals, may commence practice immediately with a 7-game conference-only season that will begin on November 6th. And the Pac-12 championship game will be played on December 18th, enabling Pac-12 teams to be considered for selection by the college football playoff. The football schedule will be released in the coming days, but the schedule will feature a championship game and other cross-division games for that 7th contest played on that championship weekend of December 18th. So essentially, you're going to get the North champ, you're going to get a South champ, they'll play each other, and then the number 2 North, number 2 South, they'll play each other, et cetera, all the way down. So let's just hope that we're playing that 7th game at Autzen Stadium on December 18th, huh? That'd be nice. So that's the way the schedule is going to work. Fall sports for which postseason championships were postponed by the NCAA until the spring will be conducted starting January of 2021. The reason for that, and more detail coming up from University of Oregon President Michael Schill, is that those championships will be in the spring, so there's no need for the season to commence now when the season can be played in the spring in preparation for that NCAA championship. Makes sense. In the sport of men's and women's basketball, this is the other key to the decision yesterday. The season will begin on the NCAA official start date of November 25th. Further details with that basketball schedule will be coming in the near future. In fact, Larry Scott actually met with the basketball coaches last night after his press conference announcing this decision. So figuring out the non-conference games, what that's going to look like, that's still important. But a big note is that practice for men's and women's basketball can begin October 14th with local health authorities' approval. All right, and now finally, no fans will be permitted at any sporting competition taking place on Pac-12 campuses. I'm just going to say it, that sucks. Unfortunately, it's necessary right now. The decision to not allow fans at competitions will be revisited based upon health and safety considerations in January. There's all the info. A lot of questions still. A lot of things to still be figured out, but positive news. And again, Rob Mullins and Mario Cristobal are going to meet with the media this afternoon. We'll have some of their comments on our broadcast tomorrow across the Oregon Sports Network at 11 a.m. from Autzen Stadium. We will also have most of their press conference comments on the show on Monday as we unpack everything from the weekend. I see a question from Miles. Has there been an announcement if the Rose Bowl is being played? There hasn't been an announcement that it's been canceled, so I think full steam ahead on that one. Jeremiah asked, what about the people who declared for the NFL draft, and do they get to come back to play? That's going to be up to the NCAA. Mario Cristobal, in an interview with ESPN this morning, confirmed that Penei Sewell will not be returning, and he said that it was just the right thing to do for his situation. For Thomas Graham, Diamador Lenore, we don't know what those two individuals have decided as of 1:07 when we're live on the air this afternoon on a Friday. Obviously, things can change quickly. That will be an NCAA issue of eligibility, and we will see what happens. Nothing 100% on that yet. Josh says, I see you still have not got a haircut. So I said that I would do it when we play a game. So I feel like that means that on November 7th, after the first Oregon football game of the season, I'm going straight to the barber and getting a haircut. Boom. For those of you who don't know, yes, I said on the air that I haven't got my haircut since February. I said that I would get my haircut when we played sports again. I am holding myself to that, and I am counting the days. There's a countdown app on my phone already, by the way. Other questions and comments. Do you think the no-fan decision is a way to sneak in 9:30 a.m. football games? That's the question coming from John. That question was asked in the press conference yesterday. The answer to it is all of it is being considered. I don't know if it's necessarily to sneak in those games, but there will be broadcast information released and kickoff times released in the coming days as the schedule gets finalized. Then the conference meets with the TV partners, and of course all those games, regardless of what time, I don't care if it's at 9 p.m., we will broadcast it on the Oregon Sports Network as well. The way that it will work, and Shane asking for confirmation, it'll be 7 games total. 7 games total for everybody. The 7th game for the top two teams, one in the North, one in the South, will be for the Pac-12 championship game. Other teams will also play that day. I'm missing something now. So the Pac-12 championship would be the 7th game. Keeping up with all your Facebook comments and questions. I'm trying to keep up as best I can. Tammy says, please leave the hair.
Yeah, keep it.
I've got that Justin Herbert flow going. Justin's got way better hair than I do. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. And Tobias says that he has the same pandemic fro. Kind of digging it, though. Might keep it. So are we just all going to go back to the long hair? Is that what's going to come from the pandemic? So now I think that the big key here, and a lot of things to unpack, is what's going to happen next. There's still a lot of unknowns. The schedule, I would assume we will see early next week. That's just an assumption on my part. That's kind of what it sounded like on the press conference last night. And Kyle asked, does a 7-0 team get in over a 9-1 in the playoff game? Thoughts on the Pac-12 versus other conferences? So that was discussed in the press conference last night as well. Look, my opinion is if you go undefeated and you look really good doing it, I think you're in. This is a crazy time. And in my opinion, and maybe this is going to sound a little bit odd, at this point, I'm just excited to play again. We've determined that it can be done safely, but still some doses of reality that you're going to hear coming up. And Terry, will the Pac-12 championship game be without fans as well? Yes, it will. That is, they will not revisit the no fans at Pac-12 games until January. I'm just excited to play again. I want to play for a championship. Everybody wants to play for a championship. Let's just say that if we get into the argument of a 7-0 Pac-12 team against an 8-2, 9-1 somebody else, good problem to have. Excited to have that debate come December. That's what I'll say on that front. Okay, quick timeout. Let me catch up on all of your Facebook comments and questions, YouTube comments and questions as well. Some news and notes from around Oregon Athletics, and then I want to let you listen in to what the comments were from Larry Scott, from University of Oregon President Michael Schill, as they discussed the decision, and a lot of questions from the media, including one about how the community spread, because I do want to just say seriously here, Lane County right now is seeing a spike. This has been, unfortunately, a bad record-breaking week for Lane County here in Oregon in terms of case numbers. Still a dose of reality. Splash a little cold water on the face, because this is an exciting 24 hours. But there's still a lot of things that could derail it. And Michael Schill said it very bluntly last night that if we can't do this safely, they'll pull the plug again. So let's all do our part. Let's wear our masks and make sure that we can still do this safely. To confirm and follow up on a couple questions, Rexy Panay Sewell is still going to sit out this year, yes, as Mario Cristobal confirmed this morning, and it will be the Pac-12 champion, the Pac-12 team with the highest record would host the championship game. That is correct, Kyle. All right, quick timeout. Come back. We're going to have you listen in on some of the comments that Scott and I picked out we thought were the most important as we are back to football. It's Duck Insider presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Back inside the Country Financial Studio next on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union. Join in. OnPointCU.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
As my family continued to grow, I realized I'd have to replace my beloved Jeep with something that has, well, more seats. I'm Jason Hines, Country Financial Rep and father of 7. Whether you're upgrading from your sporty ride with no room for a car seat or finally replacing your well-loved beater that still has a cassette player, you'll want the right protection for your new car. Work with a Country Financial Rep like me and get the protection you need at a price you can afford. Learn more at TakeSimpleSteps.com or contact a local Country representative.
Don't go anywhere. Duck Insider continues after these messages on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Learfield IMG College.
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay. Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union, and today's show brought to you by North Fork Public House, open for dine-in and takeout, northforkeugene.com. Before we get into some of the comments from the press conference and Ashley Adamson of the Pac-12 Networks asking some of these questions that a lot of you have, any idea who will play from the Southern Division? Miles says, hope it's ASU, little revenge game. I think a lot of Duck fans would be happy with that. Yeah, we don't have full clarity. I mean, you know, if the rotations stayed consistent, then you are probably looking at Arizona and Colorado, I believe, would be the options for Oregon if memory serves. But, again, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know that things are going to work out that way. I think it's going to just slot. It may be a little bit different than what we're used to. So we don't have a schedule idea yet. I think that everything is on the table. Pamela asking, what about tailgating? We don't have any info on that yet. I think that as these different policies and procedures are outlined by the U of O, we'll have a lot more information on that moving forward. I hope that once we can do it safely, though, everybody can be back at Autzen Stadium. I think that answers the majority of the questions that I can get to right now, and I will say that today Rob Mullins also said that he does not believe the University of Oregon will be raising its hand for 9 a.m. kickoffs. He said that it still impacts student-athletes, and it's, fans, believe me, we care a lot about you, but the student-athletes also don't necessarily want to be getting up at 3 in the morning to ramp up for a game either. So that's a huge consideration. From the press conference last night, we'll jump in, and I want to let you listen to what the leaders of the Pac-12 had to say about this decision, and then we'll also have some of the highlights of the question and answer from the media as well. We begin with Larry Scott. You'll also hear from University of Oregon President Michael Schill, who's the chairman of the Pac-12 CEO Group, Dr. Doug Ackerman, who is on the Medical Advisory Committee, and you'll hear from Ray Anderson, who is the athletic director representative from Arizona State on this press conference. Ashley Adamson from the Pac-12 Networks moderated the beginning of the press conference last night.
Give us a little bit of context as to how we got here and a high-level view of what came out of today's CEO meeting.
Certainly. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, certainly delighted for so many people that we're able to announce the resumption of play following our decision back in August to postpone. And this has been the result of what we said back in August, that we'd follow the science, follow the data, follow the advice from our medical experts, and that we know how badly our student athletes want to compete as student athletes for the Pac-12, but that we would only do so when we felt that we could do so safely. And this has been a team effort. I want to commend our presidents and chancellors who have been very measured and thoughtful and cautious in our approach, always with student athlete health and welfare in mind. We've worked very closely on calls almost every day with our athletics directors, regular contact with coaches, and importantly, a lot of feedback along the way from our student athletes. I also want to thank the state and local public health authorities that we partnered with and was a very important piece of this. Only being able to move forward in a way that is consistent with our public health authorities' approvals and permission. That's been a critical piece of this along the way. And I just want to express my appreciation on behalf of the whole Pac-12 conference for them working with us on this. A couple of weeks ago, we announced a major breakthrough for us, which was access to daily testing which was a critical factor to our medical advisory board being comfortable. That twinned with how the pandemic has receded in some of our markets and greater comfort and efforts that we've committed to on the cardiac issues. All these things really progressed in a material way, in a positive way that got us to the point where all of our stakeholders aligned and felt that we could revise our earlier decision. So I just want to thank everyone that has been involved in getting us to this point. And we're really excited to be able to move to play, based on local public health authority approvals.
And so with that said, President Schill, I'd like to turn to you. This has been a fluid process. Everybody knows since day one. No one really knew what the outcome of today's meeting was going to be. Can you walk us through some of the concerns that you and your peers worked through today in that meeting? And for you personally, what allowed you to finally feel comfortable supporting a return to play just 6 weeks from now?
So thank you, Ashley. We had a really good, robust discussion today. And the discussion among the presidents and chancellors was largely about the benefits as well as the cons of starting in the fall versus starting in January. And we had a really thorough discussion of both sets of start dates. And it was the consensus opinion that the benefits of starting in the fall were much greater than the benefits of starting in the spring, or in the winter, rather. So we made that decision, and things changed since the first time that we addressed this issue. One thing that didn't change was our commitment to the health and safety of our students. That's always been paramount, and it is absolutely a value of the Pac-12. But what ended up happening was over time, our medical advisory group, and we have one of them on tonight, became much more comfortable with our plans to resume. And one of the reasons for that was that Commissioner Scott was able to acquire daily testing for our students. So we were much better able. We didn't have that the first time we voted. And that will allow us to identify if anyone becomes infected and remove them from play before they affect other people or end up with a long-term damage if that would occur. So that made us very much more comfortable. The other thing that changed, as Larry said, is state and local localities. There was a time when, at the time of the initial vote, that some of us weren't able to play. We wouldn't have been able to play under law in Oregon or in many places in California. That has now changed, and so it permits us to actually contemplate competing as a conference. The vote was unanimous. It was a collegial, wonderful conversation. Let me just say one thing it was not about, okay? The media sometimes talks about, or social media sometimes talks about, that the conference is doing things because of money. This has nothing to do with money. It was never once mentioned as a consideration. The losses that our schools are encountering, and in particular our athletic departments, are huge. The amount of money that will be paid as a result of going back to play is tiny in comparison with the losses. It had no effect on our decisions.
And I appreciate that perspective. And just to follow up on a couple of your points, President Schill, I know throughout this process, you've spent a lot of time talking with students and student athletes. So what was the biggest thing that you took from them or learned from them over those conversations over the past several weeks?
So yeah, it was actually really important. So we had thought maybe we would vote last week, and we decided not to. And the reason we decided not to was we wanted to go back and talk with our students. We wanted to go back and talk with our faculty and staff, as well as our boards. And I did that. I met with about 5 or 6 different groups. And I'll tell you, the group that is most in my mind is the 2 groups of student athletes that I met with. And they were so desirous of going back to practice and play. This is something that they dream of. This is something that they want for their future. And this is something that they had been deprived of. And COVID-19 has taken so much away from these students. I didn't want, in making my vote, I didn't want to take this away from them. And so if I could feel comfortable with their health and their safety, that we weren't jeopardizing it, then to give them this ability to fulfill their dreams was something that I felt I should vote in favor of.
All right, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that perspective. Dr. Ackerman, the Medical Advisory Board obviously has led the way every step of the way. That's been pointed out numerous times. President Schill, of course, alluding to some of the data that made the CEOs feel comfortable moving forward. What's important in your mind for people to understand about the science and the data and where we are now relative to where we were 6 weeks ago when you and the medical board recommended that we put everything on hold?
Yeah, I mean, the medical board has obviously made all of its recommendations and guidelines based off of the science and the discussion with the experts that we have in consultants in terms of sports cardiology, infectious disease. And it's important to note that the public health people that we've included in our group, and we've been able to really involve individuals that are not tied to athletic departments and even individuals that are not even tied to the university. So we've been able to really have a broad breadth and viewpoints. And when we felt it wasn't safe, we felt there was too many risks, we were willing to step forward and say we needed to pause. And, the advent of the daily testing and the advent of our ability to get PCR backbone testing back quickly along with the antigen testing, to ensure that when our student athletes step on the court or on the field for practice, that the chances of them spreading COVID to one another diminishes. We can't take it to zero, but it certainly mitigates it. And it makes the other risks that we were concerned about in terms of cardiomyopathy something that we can help manage, because we can identify those who may be at risk of having COVID and spreading it and removing them so that they don't spread it to their peers and their teammates. And so all of that in place really made us feel more comfortable that we could manage this in a safe manner and make the recommendation that we could move forward.
And from a medical standpoint, have you or we learned anything from the other conferences in the schools that are 2 to 3 weeks into their football seasons? Is there data sharing or observations about spread that have helped inform how you guys are moving forward?
Sure. We certainly talk with our peers and both formally and informally, and there is information sharing. I wouldn't say that it's changed any of our decision making. We made our decisions based off of the science and off the experts in our group and what we felt was right for the health and safety of our student athletes, and put that as the only guiding principle for us in terms of making recommendations.
All right, and Ray, I definitely want to bring you in now. There are some people I think that would consider the Pac-12's decision process throughout all of this slow. Some would call it smart and methodical. I know you've been in communication with parents and student athletes throughout this entire process. So from your standpoint, what context would you want to add about how this entire process has unfolded?
Well, I got to tell you, the collaboration and alignment of the folks in this conference since day one has been extraordinary. And from the very beginning, our beacon was going to be the health and safety of our student athletes, including the mental health and safety. And so Commissioner Scott, the presidents, the chancellors, the ADs, our football coaches, our ops people, and certainly our medical folks were going to be relentless in terms of protecting the interests of our student athletes. And we just weren't going to deviate from that. And so I think the collaboration and alignment to do the right thing. And then what was also very, I think, robust in our process was the constant communication. I love my AD colleagues, and we spoke ad nauseum. And then our medical advisory group led by Dr. Ackerman was consistently available for Zoom calls with student athletes. And coaches and personnel to engage and educate about what was evolving in this very, as you said, Ashley, fluid and unpredictable situation. So the fact that we could stay aligned and collaborate and also communicate across the board, I think it kept all of us much more calm and confident that we would get to the right outcome. And so today's breakthrough is really great news for our student athletes, their parents, our fans, but it's a real testament to the way this conference worked from the very beginning with regard to collaboration and communication for the best interest student athlete health and safety of Pac-12 student athletes. And so I'm very pleased to tell you on behalf of all the athletic directors, it took us a while. It was deliberate, it was thoughtful, and at times exhaustive, but that was necessary to do the right thing. And I think we're here today.
I know there's a lot of media questions, and we'll get to those in just one second. I have one last one for the commissioner. From a big picture standpoint, looking towards the end of the season, the Pac-12 championship game is scheduled for December 18th, which is pretty much the day before the other Power 5 conferences will play their championship games. Do you believe, Larry, that a 7-0 Pac-12 champ would or should be included in the CFP as it's currently set up?
Yeah, our school is going to have the opportunity to be in the conversation, have every opportunity. We've regularly discussed this at the CFP Management Committee. There's no minimum number of games, and I think we're all very humbly going into the season, realizing there could be disruptions along the way. In fact, our fellow conferences have built that into their schedules with bye weeks, and we've seen it play out over the first few weeks. So no one knows how many games they're going to get in. It's going to be a challenge for the committee this year. They're going to have more subjectivity than they've ever had in terms of different schools with different number of games, player availability, other different conditions to contend with. But that's why we've got a committee of 13 very diverse experts that are going to weigh it all up. But our schools, knowing that we're going to be able to play a meaningful number of games, high-level games, with our championship concluding the couple of days before that final CFP meeting, we absolutely have the opportunity to have a team in the mix for the playoff. And I know our teams and our student athletes are coming back eager to compete for that.
Have you had any conversations, Larry, with your fellow conference commissioners, your peers, about expanding the playoff this year or maybe moving it back given all the things at play? Or do you feel pretty good about how it is set up currently?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion. I think there's really no serious momentum or discussion around expansion. We're committed to the traditional dates, but we've wanted to leave it as late as possible, leave as much flexibility as possible, hence the pushing back of that final selection committee meeting on Sunday the 20th, which is later than normal, to give leagues as much chance as possible to get as many games in as possible before that final decision has to be played. So I'm not expecting that the dates of the games will move back, and we're certainly not discussing expansion at this point.
Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott, Arizona State Athletic Director Ray Anderson, Dr. Doug Ackerman from Oregon State and the Medical Advisory Committee, Ashley Anderson moderating, and, of course, University of Oregon President Michael Schill, who is the chairman of the Pac-12 CEO Group. A lot of information to unpack there. I wanted to let you hear all of it as a lot of details. And now we're going to go through some of the highlights from the press conference. They spoke for almost an hour last night. We've got some of the best of the Q&A with the media coming up as Oregon football now ramps up for an October 9th first practice. Fall camp begins October 9th. Strength and conditioning for the next 2 weeks here at Oregon. More coming up as we're back to football on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
After 2 years of construction, my wife and I finally moved into our dream home. So when a bathtub fixture broke, causing major water damage, I was glad we had the home insurance protection we needed. How do you know your home is protected? Talk to a Country Financial rep like me, Nick Simon. We can help you understand your options and select coverages to meet your needs. Then if something happens to your home, you won't have any surprises. Need the right coverage for your home but not sure where to start? Visit TakeSimpleSteps.com or contact a local Country representative.
Mountain Dew Zero Sugar presents an original that's now maybe even better. Mary had a little lamb.
Mary had a bottle of Mountain Dew Zero Sugar with the same refreshing taste as the original, but with zero sugar. Same refreshing taste as the original, but with zero sugar. Same refreshing taste as the original, but with zero sugar. Mary had a bottle of Mountain Dew Zero Sugar. That's taste was as good as the original, maybe even better.
Mountain Dew Zero Sugar. As good as the original, maybe even better.
Duck Insider continues after this timeout on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, Fish Dad!
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Joey Mack inside the Country Financial Studio. We continue with all the details from the Pac-12. Part of the press conference included a Q&A from media, and we begin with Dennis Dodd from CBS asking Larry Scott some different things. And Scott and I went through, picked out some of the most pressing and important questions as we return to Pac-12 play and continuing hearing from the Pac-12 leadership group.
I think it was 3 weeks ago today or tonight that you guys announced the Quidel deal. I understand with a lot of this was with local health officials and obviously teams couldn't practice. But was that information leveraged as quickly as it could with those local health officials to get back to play sooner than today?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Well, I'll answer, and then I think President Schill or Dr. Ackerman can add to this. That was obviously a game changer for us in terms of having access to the testing, because our medical advisory committee, given the prevalence of the spread, was recommending daily testing in certain markets. But as President Schill pointed out, and I'll turn it back to him, we still have public health authorities that weren't comfortable, and ongoing questions about myocarditis and other concerns, and our medical advisory committee was tracking the prevalence of the virus, which were really the three conditions that were set as to why we hit the pause button back in August. So it wasn't as simple as just having access to the tests, but that was the start of our ability to reevaluate and have a new, fresh discussion with public health officials that we weren't able to have before the testing. But I think President Schill was closer to it in terms of the impact of the public health authorities and just how recently we've gotten their blessing. Maybe could add some context to that.
Yeah, I think that, Larry, you got it exactly right. The Quidel test was necessary but not sufficient in order to get approved to go back to play. We had been working with them continuously, and we have a host of different issues on our campuses that are public health related right now, and the Quidel test made it possible to get over that hurdle and to talk seriously about the possibility of going back to play, and I'm delighted that we did it, and I'm really very grateful that our commissioner had the foresight and the ability to make that arrangement with Quidel that gave us that tool.
Could I ask Dr. Ackerman to also maybe talk about, the cardiac concerns that his committee is constantly evaluating, tracking the prevalence of the virus? Because I know this got a lot of questions, a lot of considerations as we thought about return to play, Dennis.
Sure. I mean, the myocarditis issue is one piece of many, many factors that we were weighing back in the original, guideline or recommendation not to move forward. And since then, we have continued to learn more about that. We've learned more about the prevalence and the published articles on it. We've been able to really critically evaluate that. We've been able to make sure that we have adequate ability to screen and to do thorough workups on our student athletes if they do happen to get COVID. And our goal is to not have a bunch of student athletes get infected with COVID. And that's where the testing is really important. But I need to remind everybody that we are at a starting point again, and we need to be diligent, and we need to continue to monitor COVID and the spread of COVID, and be willing to keep apprised of this and keep in communication with our athletic directors and the presidents and CEO group. And it's not suddenly just all on and without continued monitoring.
Yes, could I just jump back in for a second, just to emphasize that. So we're moving forward now, but we're not moving forward with our eyes shut. We are going to be paying attention to what's happening. And, if we start getting spikes that suggest that this is not sustainable, we will just, stop playing. Because again, the value is health and safety of our players in our communities.
Within the release, there was an announcement about no fans for the time being at athletic events. Would you contemplate 9 a.m. kickoffs or some of the other more creative scheduling options because of that?
Thanks for the question, Nicole. Yes, we made it clear that there won't be fans at any of our events, certainly not during the football season. But like everything, we'll continue to monitor. So, we've taken a very measured step-by-step approach. We've got a football working group that's worked on some scheduling models, but now very quickly they'll work on a schedule. Obviously, we've kept very close communication with our broadcast partners, ESPN and Fox, that's the next step. So we haven't decided anything in terms of an exact schedule or times that we'll play. But we've got a great working relationship with our partners, and they've been patient and flexible with us. And there are going to be some very exciting broadcast windows for our games. But I think we're still several days away. Certainly by next week, we'll clarify an exact schedule, including some details about our broadcast intentions.
Everybody looking forward to that as we resume Pac-12 football coming up in early November, first weekend of November, with Oregon football ramping up for fall camp on October 9th, and then getting ready in about a month for their first game following that. Details on the schedule coming next week. Today's show brought to you by Shadow Hills Country Club, your family resort just minutes from home. Call for a tour today. Up next, Michael Schill asked about community spread, how it could affect this updated decision. It was an important answer to that question coming up on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Back after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union. Join in. OnPointCU.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
All it takes is one drop to make a wave. One beat to inspire a track. One spark to get creativity flowing. With every drop, Life Water refreshes your mind and restores your body. Purified water, pH balanced with electrolytes for taste. Designed with original works of art on every bottle. Let us be your source of inspiration. Life Water, the feel-good water.
Duck Insider, your home for the latest news on Oregon athletics. This is the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Tweens have mastered the art of tuning out. Jen, there's a spider in the car. We're turning your room into a home gym. See? Nothing. But some messages need to get through. Like making sure they're buckled up the whole ride, every time. Do whatever it takes to make your child listen. Jen, I friended your boyfriend.
Wait, what?
Buckle up, sweetie.
Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Joey Mack welcoming you back to Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union inside the Country Financial Studio. We continue with some of the highlights from the press conference last night. All the info you need for the return to Pac-12 play for Oregon football and beyond. This question and answer begins with Michael Schill answering a question about community spread and how we are seeing a spike in community spreads and how it could affect this updated decision after the postponement was originally announced in August. President Schill continues the question and answer.
The way that we are approaching this is there isn't one factor alone that is, or one metric alone that's going to be definitive. It's a series of metrics. And so part of that would be the positivity rate, part of that would be the number of cases, the ability to do contact tracing, and the rate of community spread. So all of those things are going to factor in and have factored in to both this decision today, but going forward. I mean, we remain subject to local public health as well as state public health guidelines, and we will follow them. And if we exceed the level that both the state or the county think is appropriate, or alternatively our own judgment, we will have to pull the plug, or what we'll have to do is pause for a while. Obviously, in a 7-game season, pausing for a long time means losing a good part of that season. But again, these are students, and we have the obligation to protect them, and so we're going to do that. We also have the obligation to help them fulfill their ambitions. And just like we have that obligation for all of our students. And so we're balancing both, and we will continue balancing it all the way through.
You know, you mentioned the money is not part of the equation. If that's so, then why wasn't all this effort put into, say, cross country coming back?
Well, cross country has 3 different seasons, right? It's all the way through. So cross country may be coming back. I think that has not actually been finalized. And then the other 2 fall sports, the NCAA has reset the championships for the spring, so they'll be coming back then. So, we are looking at equity among the sports is incredibly important. But football, because it was a fall sport and the championship game will be taking place, it was likely to be in the fall or the winter, but we decided to move it. We thought the timing for the fall would be better than necessarily the winter.
And Billy, if I could just build upon that with today's announcement, in addition to football, men's and women's basketball are going to be able to resume their seasons with the rest of the country on November 25th. And our other winter sports, which include men's and women's swimming and diving, women's gymnastics and wrestling as well. So just to be clear, this was a decision about sports in total. This was not a football decision.
For Dr. Ackerman, if you could explain a little bit about how the daily testing helps with the contact tracing and will hopefully keep kids out of quarantine, because quite frankly, that seems to be the thing that's derailing a lot of games.
To address the contact tracing, clearly, if you're testing daily, you will be able to identify people who begin to have enough of the virus in them that they turn to test positive. And if you're doing that daily and you're doing that prior to them practicing or playing, you're able to remove them from that cohort before some of that spread can occur. Now, there's no question that contact tracing and really diligent contact tracing is still going to have to occur, especially outside of the athletic footprint. The hope is that if we can continue to test daily, that we can maybe mitigate the amount of spread and the amount of contact tracing. Every health department is going to be a little bit different in how much they are going to stick to standard contact tracing, going back 48 hours from a positive test turning positive. But if you think about the fact that you'd be testing people every single day, you will be able to narrow the window where they started expressing enough of the virus to be at risk and potentially mitigate it. I think what is going to be interesting, and I think both us as well as another conference that's doing this daily testing, is that we will be able to really monitor and make sure that this truly works, and likely could have significant impact for everyone across the country in the very near future as we get this experience over the next several months.
For President Schill, seeing the Big Ten and your AAU colleagues there make the decision last week to start October 24th without the daily antigen testing details even worked out there yet, and the Mountain West also voting tonight or tomorrow, possibly for October 24th as well. Why is this conference behind its Autonomous 5 and AAU peers and maybe even schools in the same footprint?
So let me argue with your premise. I don't think we're behind. I think that we are acting deliberately. We are acting in the students' best interests. We waited until we were able to, if not ensure, to protect their health and safety. And compared to, you mentioned the Big Ten, the regulatory frameworks of the West Coast, as you know, are different, and in the sense that a number of the, most if not all of the government entities that the Big Ten was working under permitted practice and permitted play, whereas two of our major state governments did not. And so that all came clear over the past week. And so I think once those barriers came down, once the daily antigen test became available, and all of this was related to everything, right? These are moving parts that are all meshing. Then it became apparent we could do this. And then we needed to spend a little bit of time in terms of consulting with our campuses. So again, I just don't think that the way that you phrased it is correct. I think that we are doing what we should be doing it under a schedule that makes sense and is in the best interests of our students and our communities.
University of Oregon President Michael Schill wrapping up that question and answer segment. Coming up, we are going to have a couple thoughts on basketball as well, because remember, it wasn't just football. There was some basketball news in this announcement last night as well. That's how we'll finish Duck Insider after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
As my family continued to grow, I realized I'd have to replace my beloved Jeep with something that has, well, more seats. I'm Jason Hines, Country Financial Rep and father of 7. Whether you're upgrading from your sporty ride with no room for a car seat or finally replacing your well-loved beater that still has a cassette player, you'll want the right protection for your new car. Work with a Country Financial Rep like me and get the protection you need at a price you can afford. Learn more at TakeSimpleSteps.com or contact a local Country representative.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union. Join in. OnPointCU.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
This is Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Whoa, long time no see. It's me, the Rock t-shirt in the back of your closet. Dude, remember? You crowd surfed in me, man. But you haven't worn me in like forever. I get it, you're retired, but I still got some rock left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff, create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver to Mom. I had no idea how hard it would be and what I would need to know. Things I never thought of, like how to improve her mood and ways for me to stay positive. Luckily, I found the Caregiving Resource Center from AARP.
It had articles about the basics, but also information about the hurdles I was facing. Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving. Articles, tips, and tools to help you both care for your loved one and care for yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Decision yesterday, the Pac-12 football and other sports are coming back before the end of the calendar year. We continue on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union, with some questions about how the testing will be implemented on campuses and also some questions about basketball and the start date.
Can you walk us through the process of what it takes and when each program you think will actually be up and running with the daily tests?
Sure, you're absolutely right. It's not a simple process. You have to get the readers and you have to have some formal training, and the people that are going to be running the test have to be signed off and be cleared to run the test. And then, there is some efficiencies to the process of testing it to try and get capacity through to get 120 or 140 tests done in a short period of time. So you're absolutely right. And that's part of why we've been able to build in the fact that we've got the machines on our campuses, and we are undergoing the training process currently, and we will be doing troubleshooting and making sure that we're doing the test correctly and accurately so that we can trust the results when we do get them.
I was wondering, with basketball, unlike football where you're playing just conference game basketball, you're going to now open it up where teams are playing non-conference games, and I'm wondering if there's any guidance as far as, are you going to allow or encourage teams to play single games in non-conference, or go to the MTEs they're already contracted in, or possibly there's some talk about maybe a bunch of teams from other conferences in the West go to Las Vegas and play a bunch of games in a pod. I mean, is there any of those possibilities you like or have recommended at this point?
I think the answer to your question is yes. All the above is being considered. In fact, at 6 o'clock tonight, I'm hopping on a call with our basketball coaches who are in the process of, debating the number of conference games, all the questions you just raised, MTs and all that. We will, we're also waiting for the decision of the NCAA Medical Advisory Committee and Board, and Dr. Ackerman is actually on that committee, to establish what the minimum testing standards are for non-conference opponents and MTEs, because we are committed to ensure that any non-conference competition would be against teams that uphold the same testing standard that we have, and that there are no compromises there. So there's still a few pieces that need to get worked out. We will do so soon, but I think we're also in regular contact with our peers from the other conferences, the FBS, the CCA, the A5, and I think we're kind of all in the same boat trying to answer those questions. So decision today was timely in terms of trying to figure out the answer to those questions, how many non-conference games there'll be versus conference, and what the role is, if any, of MTEs in our schedule this year.
A lot of information. We just got all of it in for you on Duck Insider today. So basketball, still some things to be figured out. Looks like we'll have a football schedule next week. Everybody do your part. Wear your mask. Richard's got his mask today. We'll see you for OSN Classics from Autzen Stadium, 11 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll talk to you Monday on Duck Insider.
All right, everybody in the car. Let's go.
What are we going to do first when we get there, Mom? Go for a hike?
Sure.
What about canoeing? Can we go canoeing, too?
I don't see why.
How long does it take to get to the forest?
It's not that far, sweetie.
Are we there yet?
Yep, we're